Hello and welcome. Iran's nuclear program has caused much anxiety in the West and in Israel. Despite Tehran's constant declarations that the program is peaceful and meant to generate energy, many in the international community see it as something much more sinister, namely a project to build nuclear weapons. And much of the Bush administration's 8 years in power has been spent dealing with the issue of a nuclear Iran with little satisfaction. Washington, D.C. has even come under intense pressure from close ally Israel to do more. Over the years, Israeli officials have repeatedly threatened to do something themselves unless the U.S. gets involved. But experts say it's not as simple as the Israeli attack on the Iraqi nuclear reactor in 1981 and the use of firepower last year on what was allegedly the beginning of a Syrian nuclear facility. Plus, no one knows what the ripple effect would be for Iraq, for the Gulf region, Lebanon, Israel, or even globally. So today we ask, does Iran pose a threat to world stability? And should more be done to confront Iran or to reintegrate it into the world community? You can join in with your conversation as well. Joining me to discuss the issue is Hillary Mann Leverett, who was Director for Iran and Persian Gulf Affairs in the White House before leaving the Bush administration in 2004. She's now the chair of Strategia, a political risk consultancy. Ms. Leverett has been critical of what she calls Washington's major strategic blunders in its relations with Iran over the past years. And Dr. Ronen Bergman, a leading investigative journalist in Israel who gained access to high-level sources in the Mossad and other intelligence agencies around the world for his recent book, The Secret War with Iran, the 30-year clandestine struggle against the world's most dangerous terrorist power. Dr. Bergman makes the case that Iran is not only a terrorist state, but that it's also the greatest security challenge the U.S. is facing. I welcome both of you to the show.
Thank you very much.
Good to have you. Hillary Mann, welcome back. For you, I have to ask, where do things stand right now? How serious do you think the impasse is with Iran over the current nuclear issue?
I think that the impasse is serious. The sanctions that the U.S. has pursued through the United Nations have really reached the substantive limits of where they can go. I don't think we can expect very much more help substantively from Russia or China to get any kind of real change on sanctions. The diplomatic process is inching slowly forward, but the United States is very reluctant to actually put what it needs to put on the table for the Iranians to really be in a substantive negotiation. So what I see is something similar to what one of the principal advisors to President McCain, John Bolton, who was, many people would say, our bellicose ambassador to the UN, sees as a train wreck. The sanctions aren't going to work. A get tough policy from the U.S. is transparently not working right now. And we're looking at a train wreck.
Now, from what you know, what sort of pressure is Israel putting on the USA to take some action militarily?
Well, I think the Israelis have tried to put pressure on the United States, but see it as really not a fruitful avenue for their policy. And I think are increasingly looking to what their own options are and trying to prepare their own options to deal with what I think many in Israel see as an existential threat to the country.
Is there any real evidence from your perspective on this that Iran is looking to hit Israel?
Well, I haven't seen it. That doesn't mean it's not there. I haven't seen it. And of course, I've looked at what is the threat to the United States, what are the national security interests of the United States. An Israeli perspective is very different. For example, there's a major difference between how the U.S. and Israel look at when the threat actually is posed by Iran. For the U.S., many analysts here, many in the government think it's when there's actually a weaponization program, where in Israel it's more focused on when Iran knows what it needs to know to actually get there, almost a breakout capability. So there are two different definitions, and they're legitimate for two countries that live in two different neighborhoods.
Well, Dr. Bergman, good to have you with us, and congratulations on your new book.
Thank you very much.
In that book, The Secret War with Iran, you write there, it's on the back cover actually, you say Iran is the greatest security challenge the United States is facing. Now, it's quite a strong statement, so give us in a nutshell what the evidence is.
Look, Iran has pursued what it sees as the expert of revolution. I don't know whether Ayatollah Khomeini read Trotsky or not, but he, in fact, in reality, believed that a revolution that does not export itself would end collapsing to the inside. So from day one, almost, Iran was exporting revolution, some of it on the expense of interest of the U.S. government. And we know that until September 11, the man that killed most Americans through means of terrorism and subversion was Imad Mounia, the highest military commander of Hezbollah, an Iranian protege and someone who was admired by Iranians. On the other hand, Iranian attempts to acquire nuclear capability, attempts that are not disputed even by countries who do not obey the international sanctions, like Russia and China. These attempts go directly against the U.S. interest in the Middle East and worldwide. Why? Because I don't think Iranians are going to bomb Israel if they have the A bomb, but they want to continue pursue their foreign policy goals, export the revolution to Lebanon, to Egypt, to undermine regimes, while not afraid that the Americans would do to them what they did to Saddam Hussein. They'll use the nuclear umbrella as sort of an insurance policy to the regime.
Do you think that the people of Iran, though, are behind that idea of exporting a revolution? Because, of course, there's the issue of where people in society in Iran stand as well. What the leadership says and what the people will allow might be two different things.
Yeah. I say quite clearly in the preface of the book that I write about the Iranian regime, not about the Iranian people. I believe that the Iranian people would be more than happy, at least a major portion of them, the majority, would be happy if this regime ends its term and its time. But the regime, though giving a sense of democracy and liberality, still holds the power and a very strict control over the military, intelligence and law enforcement agency.
Let's get before you speak, actually, Hillary, I want to get a call in from Nigeria. Brad is on the line. So, Brad, what would you like to ask?
Yeah, the question is, if Iran is claiming that its nuclear weapon is for just their energy needs, but we have Israel, according to report, Israel has nuclear weapon, nuclear power in the region. And now recently, America just satisfied India for having nuclear power. Then why is Iran denied? We feel this is a double standard.
Okay, thanks for that, Brad. Of course, I should just bring this up. You've heard this before. This is the double standard issue of why should Israel have weapons and no one else?
Iran is a country that its leaders are repeatedly declaring that one of their aims is to destroy or nuke or whatever they want to do in order to take out the little devil, the little Satan. And so I think that Israel cannot tolerate the fact that after being traumatized in the past of the Holocaust, cannot tolerate the fact that it has a country that developed a weapon that can destroy it, while its leaders are pursuing publicly and very openly an ideology that calls for the end of the existence of Israel.
Okay, I know you wanted to respond.
Yeah, I wanted to just say, I think that the analysis that my colleague has given is an important analysis, but it leaves out a fundamental fact, which is that the Ayatollah Khomeini died in 1989, and from 1989 until the present, Iran has gradually, maybe too slowly for the West, acted more as a state in its national interests. I negotiated with the Iranians for the U.S. government, for the Bush administration, along with our current ambassador to Iraq, Ryan Crocker, from 2001 to 2003. The Iranians were very capable of helping us in Afghanistan, helping us on Al-Qaeda, and helping us on Iraq. They have done all three, which Ayman Zawahri, the deputy of Al-Qaeda, actually pronounced yesterday in a tape that I think Al Jazeera aired in part, was seditious, would actually entitle Sunni Muslims to go out and persecute Shia worldwide. The Iranians have shown that time after time they are capable of working with the U.S. when we actually come to the table with that idea in mind.
Let me put an email to you, actually, that we got here from here in the U.S., from Oregon. Michael Anderson wrote in saying, the whole case against Iran is so trumped up, mostly by the US and Israel. The US will not attack Iran because we have too much to lose. We cannot sustain a two-front war. However, there is some major stupidity going on in the neocon mindset now, and we don't have any compunction against using Israel to do the job for us. Now, there are those who also believe it's the other way around, that it's, the US getting, who believe it's Israel getting the US to do the job for them as well. So who do you think stands to gain more?
I don't think anybody stands to gain from the current U.S. policy on Iran. I don't think the U.S. or the Israelis. We pursue this dual policy of trying to add pressure and then trying to somehow accommodate Iran, work with them sometimes, add sweeteners to the pot to entice the Iranians. It has not worked. All it has done is deepen the divide on each side, and I think put Israel's interests actually in jeopardy. So this policy the U.S. has pursued is, as your email person wrote in a way, it is stupid. It doesn't make sense for the U.S. or for Israel.
Okay. The U.S. should negotiate with Iran as far as it can and reach whatever compromise, if it's possible. There are two examples from the past, one very positive with Libya and one very negative with North Korea that cheated the United States and continued to develop nuclear power. But if the United States is able to reach sort of a compromise with Iran in order to give up its nuclear project, then it's just for the best, and I think the U.S. should put any sort of pressure on this. I believe that at the end of the way, the Iranians see such an importance to develop this nuclear umbrella that I was talking about before, that they would never give up, and we would not see the Libyan scenario happening again.
Before you do, let's get Joseph on the line from Israel. Good to hear from you, Joseph. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, hi, Riz. I have a two-part question. My first part is, isn't it unfeasible to believe that Israel can actually attack Iran given that it has to go through so many countries to get to Iran's nuclear facilities, and it would be on the radar screen, and given the fact that the exercise that Israel conducted a few months ago had an air convoy of 100 planes and helicopters. And secondly, if indeed Israel could attack Iran, wouldn't this be completely different than the 1981 attack against the Ojiraq facility in Iraq, where Iran has arms that could retaliate against Israel, i.e. Hezbollah and Hamas?
Okay, actually, Hillary Mann, let me get your response to that.
Let me just first say, in terms of Iran being so set to get nuclear weapons, when I negotiated with the Iranians for the Bush administration, one of the things that they said to us, the American team, was during the 1980-88 war with Iraq, when the Iraqis used chemical weapons against the Iranians, even though the Iranians had chemical weapons stores in Iran, they decided not to use them. And there was a tremendous debate about whether or not they should pursue a nuclear option, because Saddam Hussein's government was threatening what they saw as an existential attack on Iran, and they decided not to do it. They had a program in the 1970s with the German company Siemens, and they kicked them out. So it's really something that still is very much up in debate, and that we can actually negotiate with the Iranians for. Okay. In terms of the difference, in terms of whether the Israelis can attack, of course my colleague will speak to that, but a critical difference here is that I think for the Israelis and for the Americans, an attack that could actually maybe have some impact in Iran would probably require traversing Iraqi airspace, which the U.S. controls. That's a serious problem. Not just Iraqi airspace, but maybe Turkish airspace, Saudi airspace, key allies for the United States. And whether or not the U.S. will go along with that and give the required clearance codes is an open question.
Dr. Bergman, your thought on that, please.
Yeah, there are joint and separate working groups in Israeli and American Air Force and intelligence agencies working and planning the attack. Having said that, Israel would use the attack if the United States is not attacking. Israel would attack only as a very last resort, and only if any other option, including economical sanctions, pressure, international pressure, and an American attack are exhausted. And Israel sees this as a very last resort. Israel intelligence assessment does not speak about the possibility to neutralize the project, to destroy it, but only to delay it, because we know only what we know. We do not know if the Iranians have hidden some other secret path, and also the sites are partly underground and heavily guarded by anti-aircraft missiles. And Israeli abilities, at the end of the day, are far limited than the American ones.
All right, we're going to have to pause here for a short break. We're going to be right back with some more on this discussion on Iran.